Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video.
I, female, 32, am currently 6 months pregnant. This is mine and my husband, Dee's, male, 30, first child, and both of us are an equal mix of excited, scared, and hopeful. Dee and I have been married for 3 years, and I have to say that he is an amazing man. I grew up with a very distant family, focused on my performance in academics and the number of trophies I brought in, while Dee grew up in a big family with two brothers and a sister. He has a loving, warm personality that often makes him the center of attention. I mean, when we were dating and even now, I can catch girls on the street doing a double take or making eyes at him. But he shares his warmth with me and me alone, and his family also makes me feel welcome. I can confidently say that I'm probably closer to my in-laws than my actual parents right now. Since I never had any siblings either, I did also try really hard to gel with my brother-in-law, male 25, and sister-in-law, female 28. And while the brother-in-laws are very nice and think of me as their big sis, my sister-in-law was always a little distant with me. Dee says that she's just uncomfortable around me since I'm a city girl and they grew up on a farm in Minnesota. Maybe, he suggested, she doesn't really have a lot in common with me, and that's why there's not a lot of interaction between us. That does make sense to me, so I settled into a healthy and respectful distance from my sister-in-law. We're family, but won't go out of our way to visit each other or know intimate details about each other's life. However, sometimes everyone has to get up close and personal, and these parents often organize big trips to random tourist sites as a family vacay. Since I was pregnant, we didn't go too far. I've settled in Minnesota with my hubby. We decided on visiting the capital and checking out the Cathedral of St. Paul, making it a weekend getaway. Taking an RV, we drove up to the city and settled into a lovely Airbnb as our home base. But due to a miscalculation of available rooms, hubby had to share with his two brothers, and I ended up being shifted to my sister-in-law's room. This was probably the most awkward setup for me, but I viewed the silver lining as a way of getting to know my sister-in-law better. In fact, she was quite nice to me and pretty decent to share a room with. However, she had one weird habit. Every time she took a phone call, she would go out of the room or sometimes ask me to leave. I assumed that she had a boyfriend or wanted to take a private call, but I glanced at her phone and noticed that someone called Bessie, 3, had been calling her. Like the last 5 calls were from this number. Now, Bessie has been sister-in-law's bestie since high school, but she's also a bit of a running joke in the family. The reason being she's unhealthily obsessed with Dee, like she had a crush on him during high school but never grew out of it. We know about this because she often comes to the in-laws' place during parties, and every time Dee is in the room, she gets flushed and starts stuttering. I'm not the jealous kind of wife, and I mean, it'd be tough to be a jealous wife with the kind of attention Dee gets, so I just play off her behavior. I remember thinking back then it might be a part of the reason sister-in-law doesn't really interact with me because Bessie so desperately wants to take my place. She must be stuck between a rock and a hard place. Teasing her gently, I asked her if her friend was calling to ask about Dee and when my divorce was going to happen. She laughed awkwardly and changed the topic, but something in her look was off. It's almost as if I had stumbled upon some big secret. I put it at the back of my mind, though, since there was a lot going on during the vacation and I wanted to enjoy it. During the day, everyone went to visit the cathedral together, but afterwards, Dee and I went off on our own to explore the city and do some shopping. It was late evening by the time we got back, and everyone else was already back at the Airbnb. I trudged back up to my room, and just outside the door, I caught my name from inside. I could hear my sister-in-law on call, and I'm sure it was Bessie again. I wanted to turn around and wait in the living room while she finished up her call, but curiosity got the better of me. I mean, I had heard my name after all, so I stood by the door and listened in. This was what I heard my sister-in-law say. Yeah, she's out with Dee. Yeah, shopping and seeing the city. So boring they've become. I swear my brother's so dull after he got married. Miss City Slicker has changed him for the worse. What's that? Yeah, due in 3 months. Haha, it would be funny. Bitch, I get what you're saying. If she slipped or something happened, they'd probably be through. Maybe I'll push her down the stairs myself. She's too soft anyways. I mean, if that happens, you could always ask Dee out after a few months. You'd be a much better fit for the family than her. I was shocked. I mean, that's putting it mildly. How could someone say something so horrible about anyone? I turned around and went to my husband's room where I found him and my brother-in-law's chilling. I couldn't stop the tears at this point and just fell into his arms crying. Without being forceful, he asked his brothers for privacy and asked me what happened. I told him what I had overheard and what it meant, and he got deathly quiet. I'd never seen him like this before. Gently, he said that he'll make up an excuse and we could go home. We booked a shuttle back to our town, and I spent the whole ride overthinking and stressing out. After reaching our house, Dee told me that he would make things right next week Sunday. I had no idea what he was planning, but his behavior had made me feel like my reaction was valid, and I trusted him. I knew I was in the right, because he finally told me what he had in mind, and it sounded like a perfect plan. Come next Sunday, I waited to see it all unfold. Firstly, he had asked his parents and siblings to come over to ours for a nice roast, followed by a movie night. Dinner was perfectly fine, and while I felt nauseous just seeing sister-in-law, I powered through it. Then we got ready for movie night. Dee had set up a projector that faced one of the living room walls, and it looked like it was going to be a magical experience. He hooked up his laptop and instead of pulling up Netflix, opened a folder titled Surprise Bitch. It was filled with screenshots he had with Bessie, and Dee ran through them one by one, starting off the whole show by saying, "Everyone, this isn't going to be a movie. But Mom, Dad, I'm going to show you why after today I will never talk to your daughter again. At least not until she apologizes to OP on her knees." Sister-in-law was staring at him confused, not really knowing what was going on until he pulled up the first screenshot. All the chats were from after we left the vacation early, and Dee had basically used his charm over Bessie to make her admit that her and sister-in-law often joked about my baby miscarrying. It was much, much worse than the one time I overheard them. It was apparently a running joke. Dee had to play into it and try to act like he was in a loveless marriage. Little did Bessie know that he and I used to look at her chats and laugh. LOL. It didn't stop there, though. Bessie basically admitted that sister-in-law was telling her that she should shoot her shot with Dee. It was pathetic, and Bessie was definitely oversharing after Dee had tricked her into thinking he was looking for an out in this relationship. As Dee scrolled through each image while slowly telling his family what he had done and what I had heard at the vacation, the atmosphere in the room reached a boiling point. Sister-in-law finally screamed, "Turn it off!" and kicked the projector off of its stand. Mother-in-law and father-in-law started shouting at her after this, telling her that she was a terrible person. That wasn't how they had raised her. Brother-in-law and Dee were kind of just watching and enjoying the drama. Sister-in-law looked at me and said, "You nosy bitch, we were just kidding around, and why do you have to take it so seriously? This is why you're not meant for us. You can't even take a damn joke." But Dee immediately rushed to my defense, cussing her out. I didn't need him to speak for me, though, because I calmly said, "Anyone who jokes about their niece dying is a shitty person, and you need to accept that." This was also the first time anyone except Dee and me knew the gender of our baby, and that added to the chaos of the whole scene. It ended with sister-in-law being escorted out, mother-in-law in tears about her granddaughter, and everyone else just exhausted from what had happened. That Sunday dinner had led to a lot of tension in the family, and sister-in-law has basically lied to the entire extended family about Dee and me ganging up on her, leading to even more of a war zone on the family GC. It's adding a lot of tension to our lives right now, and I'm thinking about what sister-in-law said about being too sensitive. Should I just have let it slide? Update 1. Hey everyone, it's been a month since the Last Supper, as Dee and I call it, IMAO, and there's not really much to say. We're in no contact with sister-in-law, and she has been ostracized by her parents and her brothers. They also managed to clear up everything sister-in-law had lied about with the whole family, so she's in even deeper shit right now. Bessie found out that Dee was just putting up a front to get info from her, and she was heartbroken, as per her text. Update 2. Okay, Bessie did something stupid. One day, Dee got a delivery of around 200 red roses at his workplace, and since neither him nor I like gestures like that, he knew it had to come from only one person. Politely, he called Bessie and asked her to take the flowers back. She, on the other hand, was just so excited that he called that she took it as a win. When Dee became a bit more strict about the whole situation, she burst into tears and hung up on him. So, right now, if anyone on Reddit wants 200 roses for free, DM me. Update 3. Sister-in-law reached out to us after Bessie's latest escapade. She said that she was the wake-up call for her and made her reevaluate her friendship. Although it was a tough decision, she said she no longer speaks to Bessie and she hopes we can take her back into our lives. However, she still thinks that it was okay to joke around like that, and her only problem was that Bessie took it too far and actually tried to steal Dee from me. While Dee did genuinely consider this, I said that I need her to genuinely understand why those comments aren't okay, even as a joke, before we can move forward. However, I do think she is remorseful, and with time, we'll get there. I also want her to apologize to the extended family for lying. NTA, and your sister-in-law is clearly unhappy about you being a part of the family unit. Instead of voicing it helpfully or actually fixing things with you, she chooses to make terrible comments. Disgusting. NTA, and I don't even know what the deal is with Bessie and your sister-in-law. I get that she is her childhood friend, but if anyone was that obsessed, I'd cut them off. And even beyond that, it's clear that sister-in-law had problems with you. I'd resolve it before letting her back in your life. Next story. I've been married to Stella for 7 years now. Together we have 5 children, daughters from my previous relationship, Kyra 11 and May 7. A son and daughter from Stella, Brianna 13 and Jaden 8, and a son together, Lucas 2. My 2 are 50-50 custody, while my stepchildren only see their bio father every second weekend. My wife and I agreed to split finances and have mostly kept them separate, aside from a joint account for essentials, bills, groceries, house, etc. We both used to be high earners, though had terrible hours. When our parental leave for Lucas was finishing, our children begged us not to go back to work, that they hated the before-after school care and wanted us. In the end, my wife went back, but I quit and got a new job. It was much lower pay, but essentially school hours, so I was able to be there for our kids. Stella has been paying more of our joint expenses, but otherwise it's been fine. I wouldn't say the split has been firm, though. I do buy stuff for my stepchildren or pay when I take them all out. It's more the big payments that are separate. Brianna goes to a private high school. I was talking about high schools to my sister since Kyra is in year 6, and realized that on my current pay, I won't be able to afford to send her with her sister. My ex is barely willing to pay the costs related to public school, let alone a private one. The school is so much better than the nearby public school, and I know Kyra wants to go to her sister's school, so I tried to talk to Stella and asked if she would be willing to help. It's education, and she's close with my daughter, so it's not like I'm asking her to pay for something crazy. Stella refused, and I would have accepted it even though I was annoyed. But she went on saying that I knew we were split finances and I made my choice when I took the lower paid job, that I got more time for less money, so I can't complain that I'm paid less. I got pretty upset about that. I didn't stay home for fun. It was for our family, our children. I loved my job, but I had to sacrifice it for them. It was worth, of course, but still. Stella basically said that it was my decision, so tough luck, that she's not going to finance me. I got angry with that and told her that she knew the consequences of her job, so she can deal with her children then. Her money won't be used on mine, so I won't use my extra time on hers. They can stay in care until our old hours. Stella got pissed back, accusing me of using her for money and calling me a complete a-hole for suggesting what I did for my stepchildren. We argued pretty badly. She thinks I'm being greedy, selfish, and petty, but it's not like I'm asking a mooch. I would still foot 50% and get my ex to contribute as much as I can get her to. Yes, it was my choice, but it was for all the children, for our family. Besides, I literally take care of my stepchildren more than my own, 85% versus 50%. I'm not just being lazy or focusing on my own children. I've been there for them all, so I think it's frankly unfair for her to refuse to help even a little. But obviously she thinks I'm being an a-hole. SH, but you more. Like heavily leaning YTA. You needed to discuss this when you decided to cut your hours. It doesn't sound like the decision was in any way a mutual one made between you and your wife, but all of you. Despite that, your wife has been willing to pay more of your shared expenses, which at least somewhat compensates for the extra childcare you are doing. For some reason, you waited until your kid was about to start high school to even think about where she'd go and how you'd afford it. You sprung on your wife that, despite your prior agreement being different, you want her to pay tens of thousands in tuition she wasn't planning on. Also, no kid needs to go to a private high school. Your daughter will be fine at a public school. I also assume you are not paying any of Brianna's tuition, so she's going to have to pay full tuition for her kids and half for yours. That's a fuck ton of money. I don't know exactly what she makes, but she'd have to be incredibly wealthy for that to be a chump change. Your wife also should have been more proactive about thinking through how all this would play out. You should have made a thorough and explicit agreement when you quit your job. This marriage sounds messed up, honestly. Next story. My mom and my wife do not get along and probably never will. I told my mom right off the bat that my partner was going to come first, and my mom said she understands that. But I can't make her like her, and that set the tone for our current distant relationship. My wife is currently pregnant with our first child. My mom did make a brief appearance at the shower and gave, to be honest, a shitty gift. I know that sounds entitled, but based on her income, it was kind of shitty. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, is over the moon and seems to think this is her to-do-over baby. She talks about nothing but the baby. Both extremes are annoying, to be honest. Anyway, we saw my mom recently at a wedding and we're all seated at the same table. Some people at the table were talking about my mom's upcoming wedding and making a big deal out of it and asking a lot of questions. My mother-in-law turned the topic back to the baby shower and then commented that my mom really doesn't seem excited. My mom laughed it off and said she is getting married. She literally doesn't care about anything else. I could see the hurt on my wife's face. My wife demanded to know who would say something like that. My mom said nothing in person, but her wedding is much more exciting to her than someone else's baby. My mother-in-law was horrified and reminded my mom that it was her grandbaby. My mom said yes, so not her baby, but her wedding. My wife mouthed to my mom, "I literally hate you." And that was the end of that. After we left, I brought up to my wife that I don't think what she said was fair. They don't like each other. My mom understands not liking the mom means she won't be close to our child. And to be honest, she's right. It isn't her child, but it is her wedding. I get why that is more exciting for her. My wife was very offended, said I shouldn't have taken my mom's side, and said I disrespected our baby. ESH. Your wife needs to be an adult. So does your mom. It's been well established that your mom is an AH to your wife and they don't like each other. Everyone just needs to accept that and move on with life. Your mother-in-law jumping in there trying to control everyone's feelings, oh my God, baby, is also a bit much. Mouthing, I literally hate you, at someone else's wedding is so trashy. All of the women in your life need to learn to keep that drama private. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.